said, Dathiruni, Dathiruni. And then the beginning of this surah was revealed. This surah, and the ayahs in this surah is, and you'll see, as we talked about before, the difference between some of the surahs that were revealed in Medina and some of the surahs that were revealed in Mecca. That this surah is, the ayahs in this surah are very powerful, almost violent. And in fact, there was once a man who died while reading this surah, which is something that inshallah, we'll talk about later. The beginning of this surah consists of commandments that were addressed to the Prophet ﷺ, just like the beginning of the previous surah, Surah al-Muddathir, consists of a commandment, or several commandments given to the Prophet ﷺ. However, the commandments in Surah al-Muddathir had to do with the Prophet ﷺ himself observing worship, whereas many of these commandments have to do with the Prophet ﷺ spreading the message to others and warning others. Some scholars say that the Prophet ﷺ was made a prophet when Surah Al-Alaq was revealed, and he was made a messenger when the beginning of this surah was revealed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Can you read up to from the beginning to the 7th ayah?
فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فاهجر ولا تمنن تستكثر ولربك فاصبر.
Now, in the beginning of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, addressing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who at the time was wrapped up in a cloak or hidden in a cloak, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya al-Muddathir, O you hidden in your cloak, Qum fa'andir, rise and give warning. In this first commandment, the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to warn others, to preach to others, to spread the message that he had been given to others. But just as we said in the previous surah, the Prophet ﷺ wasn't just told, Andir. He wasn't just told, go give warning. The words before that are very significant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed him as someone hidden or covered up in his cloak. He didn't address him as, O you prophet, or O you messenger, or by his name. He addressed him as a person covered up and hidden in his cloak. And then the first commandment before, like we read in the previous surah, the first commandment before the commandment to warn, to preach, the first commandment was to rise. So just as we said in the previous surah, it's as if there's a message to the Prophet ﷺ that your time of being hidden or taking shelter or resting is over. Now you have a mission to carry, you have a burden to carry, you have to rise up to it. The Prophet ﷺ was told to rise and warn. Then the Prophet ﷺ was taught what he should teach, what he should preach about, and how he should live himself. The first commandment he was given, the first instruction he was taught to spread, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. and proclaim the greatness of your Lord. That is the mission of this messenger. That's the mission of every human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given prophethood or has given a message. The message is to proclaim the greatness of the Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to seek their own glory, but to seek the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's translated here because of the English as proclaim the greatness of your Lord. But you see in the ayah, it's in a different order. The name of the Lord is first. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. And the name of the Lord is first. Your Lord. Proclaim His greatness. And the first ayahs ever revealed to the Prophet ﷺ in Surah Al-Alaq. اقرأ بِاسْمِ رَبِّكَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ. Read, pronounce this in the name of your Lord. Then the Prophet ﷺ was commanded, and takbir here, takbir means to make takbir. But takbir, it doesn't just mean to say Allahu Akbar. That's definitely one of the many forms of takbir. That's how this is the first commandment given to the Prophet ﷺ here, and this is how we begin every prayer. But that's just one of many types of proclaiming the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of the Quran and all of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, since he was given this commandment, was dedicated to serving the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second commandment was how the Prophet ﷺ should now live his life, how he should conduct himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. The word by word meaning of these words is, and you purify or make your garments holy. Make your garments holy. That's the word by word meaning of this ayah. But this is an expression in Arabic, and it doesn't mean the actual any particular clothes you're wearing. This is an expression in Arabic. And it's like your clothes reflect what you do. If you work in the dirt, your clothes will get dirty. If you walk on a clean path, your clothes will stay clean. So, and to make your clothes holy or pure, it means to walk in holiness or walk in virtue. Again, this is an Arabic expression. مضى طاهر الأثواب لم تبق روضة غداة ثوى إلا اشتهت أنها قبر. طاهر الأثواب is a expression for a life of holiness. There's another example in Nabigha said about the Nu'man رقاق النعال طيب حجزاتهم. He said this family, their belts are pure, or their belts are good. That means they live in, as he was saying, that they're virtuous people. And there are many examples of this in Arabic. This is the meaning of the expression in Arabic, and this, almost all of the early Mufassirin, that's what they understand from the ayah. It doesn't mean like wipe off your clothes. It means live in holiness, walk in holiness. Also the commandment tahir. Tahara, we often say purification, but it means like consecration. It means like holiness, not purification in the sense like you're physically cleaning something. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about His words that he revealed in Surah Abasa. What is the ayah? في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة. These words are in honored scrolls, lofty and mutahhara, lofty and holy. That's the meaning of holy. And the tahara, like wudu and ghusl, it's a consecration. And the Prophet ﷺ taught us that it doesn't remove necessarily dirt, but it removes evil. It removes sins. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that when a person makes wudu, for each body part that he washes, the sins of that body part fall off with the last drop of water. Now, the Prophet ﷺ was taught to devote yourself to good, to holiness, live in holiness, and the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to avoid evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالرُّجِزَ فَهْجُرْ, and shun the abominations. The word here, ar-rujz, this is the qira'ah that we read, the qira'at Hafs. Almost all of the other qira'at are ar-rijz with the kasra. And that word is in many different ayahs in the Quran. It basically means something abominable, something horrible. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used that word to describe the punishments that were inflicted on the people of Fir'aun, for example. In the Tafseer, they say this ayah refers to something in particular. Yes, in this ayah. Allah yaftah alayk. In this ayah, a lot of the Mufassirin say it refers especially to the idols. Especially to the idols. And they were referred to as an abomination rather than being referred to by a proper name. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah and they weren't given the honor of giving it like a neutral name. They were referred to as an abomination. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah what's that surah? Surah Al-Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاجْتَنِبُوا الرِّجْسَ مِنَ الْأَوْثَانِ وَاجْتَنِبُوا قَوْلَ الزُّورِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, avoid the filth or the abomination of the idols and avoid saying false things. That's a different word there. But there are three words in the Quran, rijz and rijs with a zayn, with a sin, and there's riks with a kaf. They have similar meanings. They're different, but they have similar meanings. They all indicate uncleanness. They all indicate something that's unclean. The word riks is in Surah Al... No, that's with the zay, it's totally different. Rigs, that's like a sound. It's totally different. There's riks in which surah? That's with the jim. But with the jim, it's with the kaf. كُلَّمَا رُدُّوا إِلَى الْفِتْنَةِ أُرْكِسُوا فِيهَا. Every time that they are presented with there's a conflict, they get their hands dirty in it. And the Prophet ﷺ once used that word, there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ used that word riks with the kaf to refer to dung. Anyway, the meaning of rijs is something detestable, an abomination. There's no question that it applies first and foremost to false objects of worship, idols, but the meaning is bigger than that. But there's no question that, especially in this context, it applies first and foremost to the idols that were worshipped among the people the Prophet ﷺ was sent to. Now, Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ. Basically, the meaning of this commandment is don't keep track of what you give. Give without keeping track. The word man here, that the Prophet ﷺ was commanded not to do, man, basically it means to do a favor or to count what you give to someone. Sometimes it can be positive and sometimes it can be negative. Sometimes it can mean like to be gracious, to do a favor to someone. Sometimes it can mean to remind the person of the favor, to mention it to them or use it against them. And both meanings are in the Quran. The good meaning is in Surah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the people of Jannah saying, فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا وَوَقَانَا عَذَابَ السَّمُومِ. Allah has been gracious to us and He has saved us from the punishment of the fire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah has been gracious to the believers by sending them a messenger who was one of their own. And then there is there also in Surah Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the captives in war. If you take people as captives, فَإِمَّا مَنًّا وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً. You have a choice between man, which is to let that person go free, and that's just that person, like that person owes you. You're just doing them a favor. And there's fida, which is taking a ransom for them. And then there's the negative meaning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا صَدَقَاتِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُبْطِلُوا صَدَقَاتِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ وَالْأَذَى. Don't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the faithful not to ruin their acts of charity by doing man, which is reminding the person of it, or using it or against that person. And there is also in Surah Al-Tin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. Basically, the meaning of that is that they will have a reward that's not counted against them. It's not like, you get a paycheck, you have a limited amount, you can't get any more than that, and you only get it at specific intervals. Mamnoon means it's, غير mamnoon means it's unlimited. The message in this ayah, the Prophet ﷺ was commanded not to count, to give without counting. To give without counting. Don't keep track of what you give. This is like the Prophet ﷺ once told Asma bint Abi Bakr he gave her advice about giving charity, and he said, and what is the word? To shower out your charity, and don't لا توعي فيوعي الله عليك ولا تحصي فيحصي الله عليك. He said, and let your charity, your generosity be a shower, and don't hold anything back, lest Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hold back from you. And don't count what you've given unless you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count what is given to you. That's basically the message the Prophet ﷺ was taught in this ayah. And the Prophet ﷺ was taught first to give, that applies first and foremost to generosity, to charity, which is one of the first commandments the Prophet ﷺ was instructed with. Give without counting. Also, it's bigger than that. The Prophet ﷺ had to give himself. He had to make tremendous personal sacrifices. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to give and keep on giving, and don't keep track. Don't count, I've done this should be enough. Give and then let it go. Don't consider what you have given a big deal. This is a commandment. It was given to the Prophet ﷺ. But it's a general lesson in this ayah. If you're truly doing good, you shouldn't score a point for yourself after doing it. You offer what you have to offer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you put it in His hands. You don't count it for yourself. And this is a lesson that the Prophet ﷺ taught us in many different ways. For example, the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and a person who gives a gift shouldn't take that back for any reason. And the Prophet ﷺ taught, for example, and the people who made hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ said, if they come to make hajj, they can only stay 3 days. They shouldn't stay any longer than 3 days after hajj is over. Why not? The people who made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ said after they come back, if they make hajj, they shouldn't stay in Mecca any longer than 3 days after hajj is over.
You want to sacrifice
yes.
And you don't want to stay longer in your hometown.
Exactly. What you give up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't want to take it back. And there was when during the Hajjat al-Wada', Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was very sick, and he thought he was on his deathbed. He wasn't, but he thought he was on his deathbed. The Prophet ﷺ was very upset about that. The possibility that Sa'd could die in Mecca after having left it for the sake of Allah. There was one Sahabi who actually did die in Mecca. His name was Sa'd ibn Khawla. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Ba'is Sa'd ibn Khawla. And he did, the poor man, Sa'd ibn Khawla, because he died in Mecca after having left it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This all goes back to the inspiration in this ayah, and to give and don't count it. Give it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and let go. Now, this is the next ayah is a reinforcement of all of the previous ayahs. The Prophet ﷺ was commanded to do all of these things, to live up to all of these commandments, and not keep count of them, to not keep track of them. And the Prophet ﷺ wasn't given any promise of a particular expectation that's going to happen in the near future or the distant future. The Prophet ﷺ was just commanded to stand firm in all of these commandments. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ, and be steadfast to your Lord. Be steadfast, be faithful to the cause of your Lord. Don't waver, don't weaken. For the sake of your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, be firm in all of these things that you have been commanded. And in the next ayahs, there is a reminder, a warning that there is a judgment to come, a day to come that is very serious. And this is an encouragement to stand firm until that day. And that any hardships that you may face in the path of living up to these commandments pale in comparison with the hardships of the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in this surah. Continue. Continue.
فذلك يومئذ يوم عسير على الكافرين غير يسير.
Now, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, then when the trumpet is sounded, this is the beginning of the resurrection and the judgment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that once the trumpet is sounded, and the word here, naqur, to the best of my knowledge, this is a language that has to do with like a herald, like the person who was responsible for making an announcement for a king. To my understanding, that's the meaning of this word here, naqur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when the trumpet is sounded on that day, any hardship or difficulty in this life will pale in comparison. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَذَلِكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَوْمٌ عَسِيرٌ. That day, then on that day, it will be a difficult day, a day of hardship. And there is a very strong emphasis in this ayah. Outside of the Quran, you could just say, فَذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ عَسِيرٌ. فَذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ عَسِيرٌ. That would be a difficult day. There's extra emphasis on the ayah. فَذَلِكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَوْمٌ عَسِيرٌ. Then, on that day, that will be a difficult day. There's emphasis that that day is unlike any other day, and the difficulty on that day is unlike the difficulty on any other day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then said, عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ غَيْرُ يَسِيرٌ. A day on which the unfaithful will have no ease. The message here in this ayah is not just emphasis of the previous ayah, but it's as if there's a message to the Prophet ﷺ himself to remain faithful, which was the last commandment. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And remain steadfast for the sake of your Lord. And also, there is a warning to those who fall into the description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the previous ayahs. In the following ayahs. They say in the ayahs that follow were revealed about a particular individual. Who was that particular individual? Yes, al-Walid ibn Mughira. The ayahs, obviously, his name isn't mentioned because his name isn't important. There's a lesson in these ayahs for everyone who reads them. But it's helpful to understand the situation or the context in which the ayahs were revealed. They say in Tafseer, these ayahs were revealed about a particular man named al-Walid ibn Mughira. Who was al-Walid ibn Mughira? Yes? One thing, he was the father of Khalid ibn Walid. And he belonged to the tribe of, not the tribe, but the clan of, the family of Makhzum. And in Quraysh, who were amongst the Arabs, they were like the aristocracy, if you will. In Quraysh, Abd Manaf was the clan that the Prophet